We are Dropkick Discussions here live on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. My name is Mike Foley, and I am the madman that got thrown off of a very large cell by a funeral bearer. I don't know. I tried. I failed.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. And I am the glass that Shane McMahon was supposed to go through and didn't break because I don't. My name is Tara, and we are here to bring you the only wrestling show that matters. And today is a very special day because we've been teasing this for a hot minute. The time has finally come for the very first Dropkick Discussions, how they should have booked. And we're starting with the biggest missed booking opportunity in the history of pro wrestling, The Invasion.
The Invasion, which, for those of you who don't know, first we're going to cover some quick news, and then we're going to tell you what The Invasion is and what it was, because apparently not a lot of people know what The Invasion is, which
is wild to me.
Anyway, The Invasion was...
Do you want to do news first, or you want to
after the news?
All right, cool.
Because I blanked.
It's all good. It's all good.
So, in recent news, obviously, it's been overtaken by the Bucks of the Youth, Kenneth Omega and Mr. Punkles McRooster.
Cookie Monster Punk.
Cookie Monster Punk. Basically, long story short, there was a fight at All Out over the weekend, over All Out weekend, because Punk said some not so nice things about the EVPs. The EVPs got a little hot-headed, and they decided, let's have a talk, and not in the talk where they're like, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna discuss this like adults. More like the talk of like, okay, we're angry, you're angry, let's talk. And then some other things have come out. Bobby Fish did a couple shoot interviews, one for CBS, calling out Punk for some reason. Because apparently there has been heat on him for a while. Between the two of them, since about October when they had a match over him kicking out at 3, like pulling a Hogan at Mania with Ultimate Warrior. Anyway, that's not really important. Because we also have this is interesting to me. We have the Bucks, the Young Bucks, sent out feelers to WWE for when their contracts expire at the end of 2023. Which I find... very interesting.
For the Bucks themselves.
For the Bucks themselves. Yeah.
That might be the end of All Elite Wrestling if that happens.
Yeah.
That's... Wow. Wow.
Don't even imagine the Bucks going. Imagine what Kenny's thinking about doing.
Yeah.
But,
That might be the end of All Elite Wrestling's arc if that happens. That's insane.
Yup.
Are they just like what could they possibly have that what could they possibly want that they don't have right now?
WWE Gold.
That's insane.
ROH, New Japan, AEW. They just need Impact Tag titles. They're the first ever Trios champions. They've done everything. They're just missing WWE Gold, and I can say they're the best tag team of all time. Something FTR has already beat them to.
Right.
Because I think all FTR needs is the Impact titles.
Yeah.
And not even that. If the Bucks are thinking about doing that, imagine what Kenny's thinking. Kenny is probably like, Kevin Owens is getting pretty booked really well, so maybe I should. But by the way, Kevin Owens is getting a push, which I love.
Yeah, no, I'm glad Kevin Owens is getting a push, but like, bro, this could be how would AEW continue without the Elite? How would all Elite wrestling continue without the Elite?
You have Tony still at the wheel, and you just push guys he wants to push,
and it just turns into the next like Impact where it's a smaller thing.
Yeah, honestly, I would downsize probably after that.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know, but.
We'll see that as it goes, but I never thought I'd hear the day.
But that's the main wrestling news as of today. Now, real quick summary of the Invasion angle. Do you want to take this over, Tara?
So basically, in the early 2000s, when WCW was on the point of collapse, because WCW, which was WWE's only competition in the Monday Night Wars, they ended up in a bad spot because of how they were managed, and also because of getting caught up in the AOL Time Warner merger. WWE bought them and all the resources and talent and all that, and the Invasion was basically how, in the story, WWE worked the fact that all the WCW guys were showing up into the story. So they had access to the entire rosters of WWF at the time, WCW, and ECW. They had access to all of them. And a lot of people weren't really feeling the way it shook down because it kind of just boiled down to The Rock v. Steve Austin kind of, sort of. So our task today, between the two of us, is to say how they should have booked the invasion and what we would have done. So that's the order of runnings. That's the assignment. That's the task. That's what we're working with here today.
And I think I've told you I've had this written since about July.
You've had this written since July. A lot of things have happened in between then and now.
Yep.
So this has been a long time coming, and I feel like it's kind of like a good way to kick off the third season of Dropkick, because season 1 was last semester, season 2 was over the summer, and now we're on season 3, which is awesome.
Yeah.
How do you want to start this? You want to flip a coin?
Yeah, sure. Let's ask Siri.
Let's ask Siri. So we
Siri,
don't have a Laura
can you
to
flip
ask.
a coin for me, please?
Alana either. Survey says...
I don't know the answer for that. Hang on.
Siri,
flip a coin.
It said it doesn't know the answer. That's hilarious.
Okay, we're just going to use our good old friend.
Is Siri refusing to flip a coin
Yep,
right now?
We're going to use... All right, ready? Flip.
I want tails.
Coin. All right, I'm going to take heads then.
Yeah.
It is... Tails.
All right, so here we go. Are you ready to do this?
I am prepared.
I'm very anxious about this because of how long it's been.
It's been a while.
This has been in the making for a minute. So, here's my plan. Because the original invasion, also if I'm in vocal fry, I'm very sorry. I went to a concert 2 days ago and blew my voice out. I'm very sorry if I sound like this, but it is what it is. So the way that in real life the invasion worked was they made the feud between Vince McMahon and his son a big part of it. They made a huge, like, Shane McMahon was the one that bought WCW and Vince owned WWF. It was a fight between the two of them, and then ECW got involved with Stephanie, and I want to go the other way. I want, if possible, until the last second. I don't know how, I wasn't there. I don't know how big, like, dirt sheets and stuff were at that point, but, like, I want to keep it as low-key as possible until the last possible second. Mm-hmm. That's my play, right?
Okay.
No teasing, no talking about it. Maybe, and if you do, it's got to be crafty, right? So we get to what would be the final Monday Nitro, which was WCW's show, and in real life, the match was Sting versus Ric Flair was the last match of WCW before they got bought. In real life, that turned into a telecast where Vince went on and started the whole thing. We're not doing that. Here's where we take over. ECW invades the Monday Nitro set. And I'm talking everybody. All hands on deck. Mm-hmm. Sandman, everybody out in full effect, right? And you could let the Sting Flair match finish because, it is the company's last match. But immediately after that, all of WCW starts wrecking the joint. The WCW roster comes out and tries to stop them. They can't because ECW showed up with weapons. They're the hardcore. They're the hardcore company. They show up with barbed wire. They show up with bats. They show up with steel chairs and garbage cans, whatever. They wreck the joint, including Sting and Flair. Anybody from WCW that tries to step up gets knocked down. Right. And the only people left standing in and out of the ring are ECW guys. They start tearing down the set. They start tearing down the logos. They start tearing down the lighting rigs. Mm-hmm. Everything. They're ruining everything, and they can't be stopped, right? So the last thing you see of the last episode of Monday Nitro is Paul Heyman at the entrance ramp surveying what he has done with a sledgehammer. And that's the last thing you see in the last episode of Monday Nitro. So that takes us to the next week, because the next week, here's the thing. I don't know if you could do this. I want to do this, and I don't think this is fantasy booking, so I'm going to do it. In the world of WWF, Monday Night Raw, nothing changes. Nothing. It stays exactly the way it is. They don't even blink at what's happening. Programming goes on like normal. Kurt Angle's doing his Kurt Angle thing. Undertaker's doing his Undertaker thing. Nothing changes, right? But on the other channel, What comes on the next Monday is a show that is very sloppily named ECW Monday Night Mayhem. They have taken the entire show. They haven't bothered to even clean up the remains of the WCW set. They just start putting on a show over it. And it's all beatdowns on the WCW wrestlers. Cheap beatdowns, hardcore beatdowns for these people that, you know, are supposed to be wrestling on TV. And somewhere in that, probably at the top of that, you get a Paul Heyman promo because you have to. Use a Paul Heyman promo. He says he's been watching what's happening and waiting for his moment. Now is the time for ECW. But the thing is, because Paul Heyman is a genius with a microphone, I believe he can do this. He has to start turning heel, which is tough because people love ECW. Like, ECW fans are diehards. They still, to this day, ECW, you know, like, they're dedicated. So he's got to start turning heel and, like, immediately start blaming people. Immediately start just being bitter instead of being, like, rallying together like he was very good at. Go the other way. Go the total other way with it. While his wrestlers are beating down everyone in the WCW roster, right? So as this unfolds, some people start to pick sides, right? Because you have people that want to stay the course with WCW, and you have people that say, you know what, we don't stand a chance. We got to go to ECW. They beat us. They have the deed. They hold the keys. We got to join them up. So this is where you'll start seeing the roster start to divide itself between the two, right? Because ECW on its own, I don't think is big enough to sustain that kind of tyrannical leadership. So you'll see people starting to peel off. That can bring into some mini feuds and stuff. So both sides start to bulk out a little bit. At some point, you could have it be that night. I would say maybe the next week. The WCW holdouts meet up somewhere backstage, right? And they say there's no way they could do this alone. They could do this unorganized. They could do this without getting together. So they decide to form a faction. The holdouts of WCW call themselves the Rebellion, and they're led behind. I put Booker T in charge because he was up in the middle of the WCW thing. I believe he was with WCW to the end. I think he was on their roster to the very end of the company. So
too, yeah.
That makes sense. So over the next couple of weeks, this show that's been cobbled together at ECW's request, Monday Night Mayhem, keeps going. And more people disenfranchised with Paul Heyman being a dictator and the show being sloppily, put together and people getting hurt all the time and beat up all the time. More and more people peel off to the Rebellion as time goes on, but it doesn't really, they don't stand a chance. ECW's had time to plan this. They've recruited some people as well, and they're holding the whole thing by a chokehold, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, WWF, not noticing. WrestleMania X7 goes on unchanged. Nothing, they don't even make a comment about it, right? So eventually we get to a point after X7 where the Rebellion meets up and says something to the effect of, we can't keep doing this. We need to pull together. We need something to give us an edge because we can't fight them fair, right? They have the advantage of not caring if they cheat or not, and now they have more people. They have the advantage of barbed wire and steel, and we don't know nothing about that, so we're getting our rear ends kicked. And if we want to turn this around somehow, we need help. We need to go to the only people we know that are stronger and bigger and richer, the WWF. So, in the most produced meeting you can possibly have, they send, and I'm keeping Booker T as the leader of the Rebellion, they meet with Vince. My voice is a little too fried right now to do a good Vince voice, so just imagine it. Vince says, I'm interested. I've always wanted, I never liked Heyman, whatever. I'm interested in this, but I need you to prove that you're worth the investment, that you're worth the money. I'll put something together for you to prove yourself, but you have to win every single event in this pay-per-view against your ECW people. I know they've been beating you down, they've been kicking you while you're down, but if you want me to help, if you want me to jump in, I need you to do better. So, the pay-per-view, which I named Trial by Fire, happens, and it's a pay-per-view with the Rebellion versus ECW, and the Rebellion wins every single event of the night. All different, any different types of fight, tag matches, hardcore matches, clean matches, whatever. They win, not by a landslide, but they do barely pull off the challenge of winning every match on the card and proving to Vince, who comes out at the end and shakes Booker T's hand, that it's worth betting on the Rebellion, and the WWF decides to go in with them against ECW, right? That turns the tides of what's happening on Monday Night Mayhem. And eventually, and I would do this on TV, I wouldn't wait for another pay-per-view, brings that storyline to a close. Eventually, ECW gets beaten back. Booker T makes Heyman kiss the ring after their last stand, after their last match, whatever. And that takes place earlier in the night than the end. It's not the last thing you see, because what you see is the roster celebrating that, ECW has finally been defeated, but then they start looking at each other and realizing there's too many of us for this. Okay, we beat them, but now what do we do? They tore up this entire thing, and now we're all here. Yeah, they're done, but now there's too many of us to, do anything with. Who deserves to be here, right? So that night ends with, that a brawl breaks out in that before, right? So the celebration in the ring over the defeat of ECW turns into a brawl, and eventually, restrained because Booker T's the leader of the Rebellion, and I had Kurt Angle coming out as the leader of the WWF people, because he's a good face. Eventually, they manage to get their teams back in their corners, and they walk to the middle of the ring, and they say, "We got to decide this. Who gets to stay? Who gets to go? Thank you for your help, but now what? There's not enough resources for everybody." Mm-hmm. So they set up the next pay-per-view event, the Apocalypse, because it's the end of this whole thing. It decides who gets to stay. From WCW, some of the people from ECW show up, and WWF, with the main event being Booker T versus Kurt Angle. That's the event. Angle makes a big deal of how he's doing it for Monday Night Raw, how he's always been there for Monday Night Raw, how he wants to keep Monday Night Raw, and Booker T promises that he is going to put a smackdown on him.
That's good.
And the match ends in a draw.
Oh.
Both men pass out in their own blood, effectively. And we could say that. I checked.
Okay.
We're good. I checked on that. We asked authority.
Okay.
Both men elect to pass out, and however it ends, they both go down at the same time, and the count goes to 10. Right? Mm-hmm. So in the spirit of that, and the fact that the deal was that the winner got a show, Angle keeps Monday Night Raw, Booker T gets Friday Night SmackDown. And that's how we get the brand split started, and we're back to history, the proper course of history. ECW's gone, WCW's gone, and all the talent has been integrated into WWF, soon to be WWE. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. I like it a lot. It's way so far different than what I had planned.
That's why I like doing these, though. We have very different looks at stuff.
So well. This is the thing. It works so well. So, some clarifications.
Yeah.
For my story. I kept it the same, a lot of it, because the McMahon feud is a good setup for those who have never watched before.
Okay.
So it's oh, let me tune in, let me see what's going on. The other thing is, Austin doesn't turn heel at Mania. He turns heel later. That's about it. Those are the only two things I'm going to change.
Okay.
But this is my Invasion storyline.
This
happens after WrestleMania. So this happens. So WCW has gone off the air. They had their farewell song, no interruptions, no simulcast, no anything.
Okay. I get you.
Just a nice farewell to a company that tried and failed. April 2nd. Vince walks down to the ring. And, he has an announcement. It's advertised ahead of time. Vince McMahon has an announcement. Everyone's like, what? Now, remember, at WrestleMania X7, Shane and Vince were in a rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the continuation. You know how like Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho feuded, and then it became Jericho Appreciation Society versus the Blackpool Combat Club?
Yeah.
It's gonna be exactly like that.
Okay.
So we're in the second phase of the feud. So Shane comes down. He says, no, not Shane. Vince comes down. He goes, I want to thank you all for a great pay-per-view, yada, yada, yada. But we have recently purchased something that I think you will all enjoy. We have recently purchased WCW and ECW, and we will be integrating them into our roster. Well, Shane, Upsetty Spaghetti, comes down to the ring. He goes, here comes the money. He comes down and he goes, well, Dad, you're right. The McMahon family bought WCW and ECW, but not you. See, me and Steph, we, like it's Steph, Shane, and a masked person comes down to the ring with them. They're like, we bought those companies.
I can hear myself.
And we have hired our COO to help us. The masked person takes off their mask. It's Paul Heyman.
Word.
So Paul Heyman's like their little underling. So what he goes is so he says, I have a whole spiel written. It's like, that's right. That is correct, Mr. McMahon. And I would like to say, Miss McMahon, I would like to say it's a pleasure to work with you. Now, let me turn my attention to Vincent Kennedy McMahon. You see, the two companies of WCW and ECW have decided that with the purchase of our rights by the WWF, that we are not too happy about it because we should have won the war, not you. And so we have decided to invade the WWF. We have decided to take it over and make it what it should be. ECW and WCW combined. And while we may not reflect that message well enough, we have some friends that we think will. And then you hear Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash come down to the ring. NWO beat down Vince. Boom, bam, bop, put him to the table. That's the main event of the show. That's how you end Raw. Boom, done. We have the storyline. Ready? So the following week, Shane comes down to the ring and he brings out the NWO, Haku, Sting, Buff Bagwell, Jeff Jarrett, Booker T, and Medusa. Okay? Shane says these are the men and women that have come to invade the WWF from WCW. And Shane goes along to say something along the lines of like, we have gold to decorate our soldiers since they did an amazing job, fighting the war previously. So he pulls out all the titles, all the old WCW titles. He puts the world title on. Where does he put the titles? He awards the U.S. title to Booker T, tag belts to the Outsiders, the Women's Championship to Medusa, and the World Heavyweight Championship to Hulk Hogan. Hogan is about to speak when we hear Goldberg's music hit, and he comes down to the ring. He stares everyone down, finally locking eyes with Shane, and he extends a hand and shakes it. So Shane and Goldberg, they're buddies. Later on that same night, Steph, like literally probably right after, Steph comes down. She goes, and here are my decorations for the ECW. So you can do this in the same segment, in all honesty.
Yeah.
And so she has the Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, Shane Douglas, Mikey Whipwreck, Sabu, Rhino, RVD, and Jazz. And Steph awards the titles accordingly. She awards the world title to Rhino because he was the last one to ever hold it. The TV title to Dreamer, the women's championship to Jazz, and the tag titles to RVD and Mikey Whipwreck. Shane joins them in the ring and says, hey, Dad, if you couldn't tell, this means war. So very, very much set up. It's now become the McMahon family and the Monday Night War have officially been acknowledged and are going at it now.
Mm-hmm.
So for the next month, the Alliance kind of attacks everybody. They attack all the faces, top champions. They brutalize The Rock, Stone Cold, Angle, Jericho, Taker, DX. Everyone is a target. And over this time, the titles are defended and put in smaller storylines to hold off Vince, since Vince is out. He has not returned yet. So
After he got put through a table.
Yeah, he's kind of just chilling. So the titles are defended, and it's like Shane. It looks like Shane and Steph are booking the show.
Right.
And anyway, so so Vince returns at Backlash and kind of goes, "Hey, buddy." He has a whole segment. He has a whole segment where he says, "So, you want war, son? Well, you're going to get it." And he brings out The Rock, Triple H, Jericho, Kurt Angle, Kane, the Hardys, and Trish Stratus. And Vince says he won't be awarding the soldiers any gold yet. They'll be taking the gold around your troops' waists. So, however, they are, because I didn't edit this properly, so they're also going to have whatever championship they had at the time. Because
that still works, though.
Yeah. So another quick thing, I'm changing the pay-per-view order. The pay-per-view order, I looked this up. It goes Insurrection, the Invasion. The Invasion was after Judgment Day. We're gonna swap that. You can only do the Invasion storyline for so long,
right?
So we're gonna swap things. So it's gonna be Insurrection, Invasion, SummerSlam, King of the Ring. That's what I'm going with, and then or Judgment Day, whatever. Like swap two, is what I'm saying. Anyway, finally. Actually, Judgment Day after Invasion. Yeah, that's how I have it. So going into the Insurrection pay-per-view, we have a triple threat ladder match with the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and RVD and Mikey Whipwreck for the World Tag titles. The Hardys are going to win that. That's the WWE World Tag titles. I will clarify which titles are on the line.
Okay.
Vince and Shane promo announcing Invasion with the subtitle, "This Means War," next month, where all championships will be on the line. It'll be like a point system like Survivor Series.
Okay.
Triple H will defend the Intercontinental Championship against Tommy Dreamer. And a tables match, and Hunter wins. He retains the title. Chyna will defend her women's championship against... Just Chyna had the title at the time because she won it at X7 against Stratus, Jazz, and Medusa. Trish will win that. Rhino will defend the hardcore title that he also had at the time because he was already signed with WWF at the time.
Okay.
In a Extreme Rules match against the Sandman, and the Sandman will win the hardcore title. It's basically like their version of the Finger Poke of Doom.
Right.
Literally, Sandman's going to come down to the ring, have this awesome entrance, poke him with a stick, and just like poke him with the kendo stick and just stand on top of him. 1, 2, 3, title's mine. All right, cool.
Right.
Now we're fully decorated. And now they have a WWE championship, which is going to annoy Vince.
Mm-hmm.
The main event will be Undertaker against Austin for the WWE championship. Austin will retain with the help of Sting, who interferes. So this is Sting's debut into the story.
Okay.
So this causes, the Invasion to be between 3 teams, yada, yada, yada. We're not giving away any matches either. That's why I put like multi-matches on the card, was because you have Chyna, Trish, Jazz, Medusa. You have what's going to be it, but you throw Chyna in the mix, it makes it a whole different match. So we're not giving it away. All right. So, heading into the Invasion, Paul Heyman cuts the promo because Paul Heyman's a genius. He cuts the promo that he cut before the Invasion pay-per-view beforehand. Basically, like, calling Vince out and yada, yada, yada.
The Look at Taz one?
Yeah.
That was a work of art.
That was a work of art. So, finally, add the Invasion card. This is what it looks like. We have the Tag Team Championships. It's just the titles, because that's what we're calling it. The Hardys, RVD, Mikey Whipwreck, and the Outsiders. In a ladder match, I would have the Hardys win personally. Just me. Because some people are getting released after this pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm. They have to.
Yeah, the IC title, Triple H and Booker T, because Booker T is the U.S. title, so it's both titles on the line. I'd have Booker T win to set up eventual that feud going into Mania a few years later, so they can revisit that. All right, the Women's Championship, I would have it be Trish, Medusa, and Jazz. I would have Jazz win the title from Trish by pinning Medusa. So you can release Medusa, and then you can have Jazz versus Trish going ahead into the rest of the summer. I would have Kurt Angle take on Haku in a last man standing match, because you got to use Haku, man.
Mm-hmm.
He's the toughest man in wrestling. You got to use him, man. So that's where I have him.
Gotcha.
I would have Jericho versus Dreamer in a normal match, and I would have Paul Heyman will come down to the ring and help Tommy win via shenanigans. That's all I got, because I forgot that I gave Tommy the TV title.
It's all good. It's all good.
Handicap match, it's going to be Kane, Buff Bagwell, and Jeff Jarrett, and Kane will dominate, and then Shane will come out to the ring after. Like, Kane will pin them both, like the whole like big man pins 2 local competitors with 1 foot type deal.
Yeah.
I would have Shane come down, and you see Buff Bagwell kind of like beaten down in the ring. You see Jeff beaten down in the ring, but like Jeff kind of gets up and like meets Shane's gaze, and he goes, "Jeff, you're fired." So we still get that "you're fired" moment somehow to spawn TNA.
Because
or Impact, yeah. Because that came
TNA at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I forgot that was a part of this. I completely neglected that.
Yeah.
That's wild. This is crazy how much this one like moment in wrestling, like the butterfly effect, you know?
Yeah. It's really insane. Oh, I'm trying. All right, Hardcore Championship.
You're doing good.
Shane Douglas will take on the Sandman in an unsanctioned match. This doesn't count for any points since it's two of the same guys.
Okay.
It's literally just for fun. It's to cool everybody off for a little bit, like just have some hardcore fun.
Gotcha.
Like,
yeah.
Why not use them while you have them? Then we're gonna have the match that was going to happen in like another year or two, which is Goldberg versus The Rock. The Rock loses in 10 seconds because he has Hollywood soon.
Yeah.
So spear 1, 2, 3 done.
Right.
Setting Goldberg up as a good challenger for the championship. So the main event.
I'm down with it.
I forgot one other thing. We have Sting versus Taker in a coffin match. I would have Taker win personally, just because coffin matches are his thing. You can continue the feud after. And then the main event would be Hogan, Rhino, and Austin for the world titles. And I would have Austin win, pinning Hulk Hogan. So WWE wins 5-4, barely securing the dub. So the next night on Raw, Vince comes down and he takes a look, and he has all the titles set up on their little pedestals, and he says, you know, I have my spoils of war here, so I'm going to announce what I'm going to keep and what is going to stay in the past, like WCW. And he has an evil grin on his face. So he said the WCW tag titles will remain, and they will be renamed the SmackDown tag titles, or whatever they were called at the time, and they're going to go to SmackDown. The United States Championship is also going to SmackDown, and the World Heavyweight Championship is also going to SmackDown, setting up all of that. And he said he would like to call his kids and Paul Heyman down to the ring, and he said, surprisingly, I'm proud of you all. You did something that nobody else has done. Had me worried about my company. So I want to reward you. You will be put in charge of SmackDown with your own roster and these titles. Vince extends his hand to the former leaders, and he pulls it away when his kids go to shake it. And he says, not you. And he grabs Paul Heyman's hand. And he turns to his kids. And he says, you're still employed. You're just going to be taking care of everyone's bags for a long time. And Paul Heyman would then announce tournaments like, I would call Judgment Day the Judgment Day Gold Rush or something.
Yeah.
And have all those titles be defended in a tournament.
Yeah.
Really establish SmackDown. That's what I have.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a lot. I looked at the Invasion story and I was like, there's just a few things that are out of place.
Right.
If we establish things right, we know. And it can't go for more than 3 months. I'm sorry.
No.
It
No.
can't. This storyline has a 2-month expiration date.
Same with mine. You got a 3-month max.
At most, and that's pushing it. That's really pushing it. Like if this was ground beef, it starts to get a little gray. You gotta risk it, but like also you should never do that.
Right. So you say 2 months.
2 months. 2 months. So it's literally they do the British pay-per-view, which is Insurrection. They do Invasion. Done and done. That's your storyline for the summer because that ends in July, and then you have what basically every question is what happens next. What's going to happen in SmackDown? Because that's going to get the viewership on the next show.
Right.
On Fridays, you have SmackDown. Everyone's going to tune in because they're like, all right, the tournament's starting. All right, Paul Heyman's in control. It should also clarify, Paul Heyman's going to be the mouthpiece of the McMahon children, and they're just going to sit around and do nothing. They're just going to vibe out. They're going to be like, oh, yeah. Do whatever you want, man. And they're just going to go do their thing.
Right. Which could also set up a little bit of distance between him and them for when he gets the job and they don't.
Yeah, it all makes sense storyline-wise.
Yeah.
I just forgot to write some of it down.
Nah, I like it, though. I like how thorough that was and how it's like you said, like your version of events is kind of just like pushing the pieces into place, like that were missing from the original Invasion, whereas mine was just like, let's just try a different story altogether. Which is one of the reasons I like doing this, is because we always have really different ways of looking at like hypotheticals in wrestling, which is really cool. I love doing stuff like this. And the thing with the invasion too was that like I completely, and I mean completely, did not realize that TNA was a product of that.
Yeah. Jeff Jarrett got fired in 2001.
He got shoot fired. Like, that was real.
Live on air.
Yeah.
In front of everybody.
Yeah, like that was real.
All right, Dad, we're going to make our own wrestling company. And then the Bender joke from Futurama. Yeah. And then it was that. So this timeline still allows for that to happen. Still allows for the debut of that. Still allows, like, I was trying to make sure everything fell in place where it was not a significant change.
Right.
But still a decent enough change that it, like, signifies stuff. Because at this point, what I kept was that, Hogan loses. So that'll give heel heat to Austin so that when he eventually defends the title against whoever and cheats to win.
Right. He could still turn.
Should it be saved for SummerSlam? Probably.
Yeah.
So, like, it would be a slow heel turn for Austin, which I could do. I'm not going to because it's hard.
Right. I also like how both of us were like, put Paul Heyman in. Put him in, man.
Heyman does a great job at storytelling because I've watched his interviews, and when he tells stories, he's always very good at, like, getting everything down, keeping you engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is one of the first things I remember about getting into wrestling for the first time was watching, like, going back on YouTube and watching the Heyman promos.
Yeah, because they're always amazing.
Like, he made a character out of Brock Lesnar, like,
which is not hard to do with Brock because Brock is a monster. He should be treated as such.
At the time, it was because he wasn't doing anything.
In 2001, it was hard because that's when he debuted. Oh, that's the other thing. I would save Brock Lesnar's debut till after SummerSlam.
That's the other thing, is that somewhere in here you have a lot of people that would go on to, like, people like Brock Lesnar. And, like, if the timing was right, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if the timing was right, Punk could have been involved. Yeah? Or was this a little bit before him?
Punk got popular in 2002 in ROH. He got 2002, 2004, I think, was when Punk... I don't know, but those are the years I'm going with because I know that's around the time ROH was founded, I think in like 2002, 2003.
Right.
And then Punk started getting popular in 2004, 2005 because he was signed by 2008.
With WWE.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to say, yeah, I think Punk really couldn't have gotten involved because he was just starting to, like, get trained at the time.
Right. He missed it by, like, a couple years.
And if Punk was involved, that would be another interesting aspect of if they did an ROH invasion.
Ooh.
Which we can always do. But right now, the big storyline should be, like, how would you have booked CM Punk's AEW title run? Which I already have off the top of my head.
Really?
If he didn't get injured, you do the rubber match with Hangman. You make it a stipulation, make it like a bull rope match or something. Something like old school Southern Gothic that, like, he likes, that Cody likes. And then at the time, who was number one? I think it was Hobbs or Starks. I would have Starks go after it next because Starks versus Punk sounds like money.
Yeah.
And I would have that lead into the Powerhouse Hobbs heel turn. Instead of the triple threat at Fyter Fest, I would have it be the Bucks versus Swerve in Our Glory. And I would just be like, have the Bucks, like, start to torture them right away instead of having that weird feud that should have ended at Double or Nothing but didn't end at Double or Nothing. Anyway,
yeah,
have Starks project into the world title picture, have Hobbs then turn on him. Easy peasy, done and done. And then after that, you can either do. At that point, we're looking at what? Because that's Double or Nothing was May, June, July. Obviously Punk versus Tanahashi was a match at Forbidden Door. So you had that's 3 defenses as of that point. He would also probably defend it again against I'd have him defend it against Dax Harwood.
Okay.
Just because I feel like that'd be kind of cool. Have, like, one of his friends, like, kind of like be against him and just, like, try and fight with him.
Right.
Then I'd have Moxley get up in the rankings, and then I'd have him set his sights on the title, and I'd have Jericho set his sights on the title.
Yeah.
So then I'd have a triple threat at All Out. I'd have Punk, Jericho, Moxley.
Who wins?
Moxley does.
And then we're back on track.
And then we're back on track.
Nice.
Easy peasy, done. Punk had a Summer of Punk, and then he can slowly start to turn heel. And
Which now it looks like is the only option.
no, it looks like the only option is to fire him.
You think they will?
I think they should. I think you can't. My personal belief is if you are the top champion, you are supposed to hold yourself to a certain amount of professionalism, no matter how hurt, no matter how angry, no matter whatever. And that's
Facts.
ironic coming from me from sometimes.
Not really.
And
Whatever you've told me out of like, I don't think that's ironic coming from you. I think you understand what it means to be a professional and like do your job even when things are like hitting the fan,
right. So he should have a level of professionalism. Now, if this was planned, totally fine, which is the rumor. But I don't believe rumors unless it's confirmed true.
Right.
So what I'm going off of is the facts. Punk should have, chilled. He should have he should have if he should have turned to Tony and recognized, okay, I'm upset. I'm going to chill in my locker room. Have me go on last.
Right. I got to cool off a minute.
I got to cool off a minute. Or don't do it at all.
Right.
Or take a deep breath, suck it up.
And be an adult. You are a multi-millionaire dude. Stuttering. The overarching thing that we've heard from AEW is that Punk is the biggest acquisition. They paid to get CM Punk more than anybody else on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you out there acting like this is the first time they're letting you on TV? Why are you acting like you've been like buried in some way, shape, or form? It's very weird.
The only person that's allowed to have that outburst right now is Rosa. Thunder Rosa. Whatever issue you have with her, that's fine. Go ahead, have that issue. Personal beliefs aside, she has 15 seconds to cut a promo for a match with Tony Storm. She's allowed to throw an outburst.
Right.
He's not. He's got all the main TV time. If he has one problem with a guy from a faction who's injured, why?
Right.
If you have a problem with Hangman, why are you saying it on live air? Why not just say it after the fact? Why did you hold on to it for 3 months? What is... I'm just confused.
Right. I think Punk really believes he's untouchable. Honestly, I think that he believes that he's above, like, the entirety of everybody around him, and I don't get it because, like, the thing is, like, that was cool when CM Punk wasn't wrestling, and his name itself struck fear into the hearts of, like, WWE when people would start chanting it, and, like, he was, like, a myth, because he was the guy that left.
Right.
Because then he kind of was untouchable, but he also wasn't doing anything. So now he's on the other side of that. He's doing things, and he's definitely not untouchable.
He's very much.
Right? Like, it's just like, I feel like he still thinks he's on that level of immunity to criticism, and he's not anymore. He never should have been. But as much as I like him, he never should have been immune to criticism. But, like, now I don't think he understands that he, like, as much as... This is my thing, right? I think it would be difficult. I think it would require finesse, and I think there would be... The internet would tear itself into little itty-bitty pieces for a few weeks. However, I truly believe that AEW could continue without Punk.
I do too. They have the roster, they have the talent.
They have the depth on the roster, and they have made good booking decisions.
They
Not
have.
all of them, but they have.
But with the talent they have, this is my issue. My main issue. You're signing guys every single week, it seems like.
Right.
But yet you're relying on a guy who's in his 40s, who, I'm gonna be honest, is injured for the second time this year. Like, to be your world champion.
Right.
And you just saw him throw a child's tantrum. Let's call it what it is. It's a tantrum.
Assuming it's not a work, which we have to.
If it's not a work, I'm assuming it's not a work.
Which we have to based on the information we have.
It's a tantrum.
Yep.
He threw a fit live on air because someone mentioned Colt Cabana, because someone mentioned Hangman, because someone mentioned Kenny Omega, because someone mentioned the Bucks. He wanted to go off because he felt like it, because he does think he's untouchable still. And I sorry to tell you, Phil, but you're not. If I can call you by your real name and I can sit here and I can critique you because you acted like a child, it just shows a lot. So,
that's the thing, is that, like, it's also a really, like, he's just kind of setting his own legacy on fire because, like, as the guy who walked out of WWE and with, you know, his head held high and his integrity intact, like, and then went to All Elite Wrestling and then did an amazing amount of, he started to do amazing stuff. Like I said, the MJF CM Punk storyline is one of my favorite wrestling storylines of the modern era.
mm-hmm. It is. It's
Why are you backtracking now? Why are you like now now this is now part of gonna start like writing over that legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we always knew that CM Punk never had a problem thinking a lot of himself, but this, like you said, it's a little kid having a tantrum that they didn't get the toy they wanted. That's how it reads.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a little kid, Phil. You're a multi-millionaire. You're the highest paid person on the roster. Like, it's sad. It's sad. Like, this is like, it's sad because you're such an amazing talent and such a legendary character and somebody that a lot of people look up to, somebody that I look up to. And seeing you do this with your like legacy and now maybe making everyone think that maybe, because this is the other thing, now the thought enters people's heads of maybe, just maybe, you were the problem. And you don't want that. Whether that's true or not, you don't want people thinking that.
Listen. And if it's a work, if this has all been a work,
it's a good work.
Congratulations, Tony Khan. You worked us twice because I genuinely thought Max was leaving AEW.
Agreed.
But this doesn't seem like it. There's a good feeling in my gut. My gut when it came to MJF was like, this is off, but I feel like he's going to stay. This doesn't seem like that. This seems like genuinely like he's done. I think he reached a point where he's like, I can't do this anymore. And I think the best way out is to, cinder. Just Operation Cinder, just leave everything in dust.
Right. So then I guess the question would be, assuming, we're making a lot of assumptions because we don't know a lot. I wish we had somebody on the inside, but we don't.
We don't.
Assuming AEW does let him go, which, like you said, might actually be the best move right now. What do you see him doing next?
Sitting at home, doing nothing.
Because I don't think Hunter will take him back after this.
No one's going to take him.
Ring of Honor is now an AEW property, so you're out there. Unless Hunter somehow like has the... Because not only does it not make sense story-wise and there's not really anything for him to do in WWE... He also is in beef with the guy that now runs it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see that happening. Where are you going to go? Impact?
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
You're going to go Ric Flair yourself and, like, go to Impact and then retire-ish?
None of this makes sense because, Ric Flair finally retired after he had his last match, which he was knocked out twice in.
That was scary.
Yeah.
That was scary.
No, here's the thing. From a story standpoint, if this was a worked promo, where does this go? MJF is the ultimate heel. Like, he certified that in Buffalo the next Wednesday, so he was going to be the heel of the story, right?
Yeah.
So what does this leave Punk to do? Is my question. This is why I think it's not worked.
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
CMJF.
It doesn't. Maybe. But I don't think it doesn't work heel versus heel.
No.
That was a heel turn promo.
If it's a work. If CM Punk's thing is a work, yeah, that's what I said. That's the only way this could possibly be kayfabe is if this is a work and he's going to come back as just the biggest heel. Which, he can do.
Yeah.
We've seen him do it with like a straight edge society. Nobody likes preachy straight edge guys. Like you could get real culty with it, right? Like he can do that. But I don't know. I'm kind of on the same page with you on this. Like I so badly want to be like, because you and me kind of early on disagreed over the MJF thing, but this one, like, I'm with you on this. Like, I don't see how where this goes in the story unless it's CMJF.
Well, we won't know for 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, because he's hurt again.
That's the other thing. The storyline just doesn't add up to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and that's why I'm having trouble trying to see if this is a work or not. MJF's storyline, you can kind of look back at it and be like, okay, he was fed up, and he just wanted to do a Rudy Tooty Shooty promo so that he could leave. This doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
And it's
because that made sense to get MJF off TV for a little bit because he needed to reset a little because he was out of storylines for the moment.
Yeah.
And it worked. What does this do for Punk if it's a work?
What? Like, even if he wasn't injured, what does this do?
Right.
Take the injury out of the equation.
Oh, man.
The storyline is MJF. He has to cut a promo against Max. Instead, he cuts one against the EVPs and Colt Cabana.
Oh, he's mad at Colt now, too?
He's been mad at Colt. He's made it clear that he doesn't care about Colt. And a lot of people thought that he was going to get Colt fired when Colt's contract came up. But Colt went to ROH.
Right.
So
also, the Dark Order is kind of like protected really well right now because if you start firing them, then it looks like you're firing people after Brody Lee died. So they're kind of in a spot where I think it would be bad to start cutting off big pieces of the Dark Order.
Well,
in its entirety, at least.
You never know.
It's true.
Stu left.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan Angels left.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is also true.
Colt left, and Anna Jay switched factions. All they have is Evil Uno, 10, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds.
Who are talented people, don't get me wrong.
They're all talented.
Those were like the core of like the Dark Order, now that I think about it, those four.
Stu Grayson was the other one.
Yeah.
Those five, you could have swapped anybody out, but like, I don't know. It doesn't, something...
Something right.
AEW's in a weird state right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to get better. I'm hoping it's going to get better because I don't want to see the downfall of AEW anytime soon. But right now, we also have to look at, like, Kenny Omega. What's he up to? The Bucks. Obviously, the Bucks sending out feelers to WWE is the same as Orton doing it in 2019 with AEW. He wanted money. They probably want money because it's the same thing as literally anything else. Punk is their biggest acquisition. Danielson's probably second biggest.
Danielson's working, though. That's the thing.
Danielson's working. He's paying off the money. In general, I mean, they're shelling out. Say the Bucks are worth $1 million. They're shelling out $5 million for Punk, $3 million for Danielson.
Mm-hmm.
The Bucks probably want that $3 million, at least that $3 million, because they know what they're worth. They've carried the tag division before. They've done it twice.
Yeah.
They know their worth, and they know that they're worth a lot of money, which is why I'm not super concerned about the feelers going out to WWE, because it's just it's a tactic. It's to get money. Right. Jericho did it back in like 2005 when he sent out on his website, he had a picture of the TNA logo. This has been done for years. People do this to get more money, and it works.
Right.
I'm not super concerned about the Bucks leaving because it doesn't make sense.
That's fair. That's fair.
Who in the tag division do the Bucks have to fight except the Usos? The Street Profits versus... That would be actually pretty cool.
But so that's 2 fights.
2. That's about it.
Yeah.
The New Day. 3.
Whatever happens to the New Day next.
Yeah, exactly. It's just... It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for them to leave, and it doesn't make sense for Punk to cut that promo.
Then again, I said the same thing about Cody leaving. I said it made no sense, and they didn't really have a place to put him.
Adrenaline in my soul. Cody Rhodes is on a roll.
So I got a question for you.
As we wrap up.
What you want to do next week?
That's a good question.
In it.
We do have a game. Possible game. I texted you about this.
Yes. And I said yes in all capital letters. I'm so down for that.
So next week, folks.
I also, one day, real quick before we wrap, I know we're at the time.
We're almost there.
I one day, doesn't have to be next week, but one day, as a sociological study and thought experiment, would like to tell the WWF how they should have booked
Gold Dust, huh?
Yep.
All right.
Because there's a fascinating conversation to be had around Goldust and what he meant for what he was and what he wasn't.
Exactly.
So we'll get to that at some point.
Of course, and we'll get to that on 90.3 WMNC, Upper Montclair. But next week, folks, we are going to have Guess That Wrestler with a bunch of non-wrestling fans. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Terry, do you have anything to say to the nice folks at home?
Just to you, good job on the invasion stuff.
Thank you. Good job to you as well.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.